Good morning. Today is January 8th, 2026, and welcome to this installment of the New Possibilities Hour, part of the Will Work for Food project founded by Natalie Armstrong-Motin. It's hard to believe, but we're beginning our seventh year. We began this in 2020. Every Thursday, along with Natalie, I am proud to host, along with Jean Lawler, Michael Schwimmer, and David Shraga, another fabulous webinar for mediators, arbitrators, lawyers, and everybody who negotiates. As you know, there's no charge for these great webinars. Rather, we ask you to contribute to a food bank if you like what you see and you're in a position to contribute. One of my favorite parts of the webinar each week is when we announce our running total of just how much our generous audiences have contributed to date in honor of our great speakers. Jean Lawler, would you please do the honors?
With pleasure. Welcome. Happy New Year, everybody. And it's great to start out a new year fresh with some great numbers here. The donations through year end of 2025, of which we've been told, the number is $910,452.78. So before everyone got on, we were but just guessing when we'll hit the $1 million mark. We're looking at spring or summer, and thank you so much for being here. And please do let us know whatever your donation is, small or large, it doesn't matter. It all makes a difference. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. It's fabulous. The generosity of our audiences and the generosity of our speakers with their time and insights over the many years and hopefully for many years into the future. We're kicking off this year with a fabulous presentation, The Digital Evolution of Mediation, AI Integration, and the Future. We will consider the evolution of mediation over 40 years from a fully physical event to a digital phenomenon. We'll consider how to think about integrating AI into your mediation practice. There are opportunities previously unavailable for mediation participants to elevate their information base and understanding. How can we do it? How can we use all this to the best advantage of our clients, mediation participants, and ourselves? There's nobody better to present on this than Jim Melamed. Jim co-founded Mediate.com in 1996 along with John Hiley and served as CEO of Mediate.com through June of 2020. Jim is currently board chair and general counsel for Resourceful Internet Solutions, Inc., home to Mediate.com, Arbitrate.com, ODR.com, and other leading dispute resolution sites. During Jim's 25-year tenure, Mediate.com received the American Bar Association's 2010 Institutional Problem Solver Award. Before Mediate.com, Jim founded the Mediation Center in Eugene, Oregon in 1983 and served as the executive director of the Academy of Family Mediators from 1987 to 1993. Jim was also the first president and executive director of the Oregon Mediation Association, 1985. I also want to add that Jim was the trainer in one of the very first mediation trainings I ever took, all the way back in the mid-1990s. And Jim, your sound advice, I still put it to work every day. One thing really sticks out in my mind: credit their positive intentions.
Yeah.
Always look at the bright side and the good intentions, positive intentions that people are bringing to mediation. I thanked you for that sound advice then, Jim, and it has served me well for over 30 years. Looking forward to more sound advice today. Please give us a word or two about the food bank to which you would like people to contribute if they're able to do so. And then on with the presentation. Jim Melamed, coming to us from Oregon. The floor is yours.
Yes, I'm trying to support the Lane County Food Bank, which is down in Eugene. We've now moved up around Bend, but there's plenty of need everywhere, and I'm familiar with the folks that run the food bank, and so it's a great honor to support them and encourage you to do the same. Thank you so much, Jeff, David, Natalie, Jean, for this opportunity. I also want to mention we've got some real stars, including Bob Bergman is on the call in terms of what's happening on the front lines of AI and the like. So, Bob, I trust that you'll correct me along the way. Let's start, though, with more basics. I mean, what a miracle it is that we're able to meet in this way. both all the rich media, the live event, as well as it being recorded and available to everybody else on the planet as we move forward. And I just think this is critical because as we move into AI, the field really needs to retrain itself, in my mind. And I'm sure that this will be done with online training as well. Another miracle that we're really used to is the PDF. And I've already posted the PDF for this presentation. It's right available at the mediate.com homepage. The specific URL is mediate.com/digital evolution. And by having posted that, I'm hoping that'll free you from needing to take many notes because there is a lot of detail. And it's also going to free me to go a lot more quickly because I am going to go very quickly rather than burrow down into some real deep specifics. I'm really trying to give you a sense of the landscape as mediation moves into this new era of AI. We will start, however, going down memory lane and see how quickly with a picture show we got here. But we're going to be doing that at 70 miles an hour. So please put your seatbelts on if you'd be so kind. We also would be remiss to not mention COVID as an unbelievable event in bringing mediation online uh, to Zoom and in prompting so much additional development. It was unbelievable, March of 2020, where literally overnight, the only mediation that was happening, at least in the States, was online mediation. And I was kicking myself for not having brought that up as a possible exercise in mediation trainings. Would that be a great assignment to people? Imagine you couldn't meet physically with the people. How would you do it? I wish we would have been foresightful enough to bring that up as an exercise. Uh, the result, however, is that between 70 and 80% of all mediations now are exclusively online. And that reason for that is between 70 and 80% of mediators and 70 and 80% of participants would prefer to mediate online. So this is unbelievable, really relevant for court programs, agency, corporate programs as well. I also want to mention that even those cases that don't exclusively mediate online, there are still online cases. These are still cases where we want to complement whatever physical opportunity we have with doing all the right things online, starting with our website, in our contact and our response and our scheduling and doing all those things properly, as well as, of course, refining the correspondence and agreements as we leave a physical meeting. So, in my mind, every case is an online case. And AI is relevant to every case. It is now the air we breathe, I would suggest to you. And whether we want to get into it or not, our participants already are. In fact, they'll be educating us in part as we move forward. So, what an unbelievable thing that this field that became 100 started out in the mid 80s, early 90s as 100% physical, relying on calls to landlines, relying on the postal service for delivering documents. There was no internet, there was no digitization, and that this field, including our best practices, Jeff, that we trained on, 30 plus years ago, now has all become fully digitized. And it's just a remarkable thing. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and launch a picture show. So, there's the URL for where the PDF is. And of course, PDFs are clickable. So, you'll see a lot of additional URLs along the way. There's Food for Lane County. So, just a couple of upfront questions. I encourage people to think, do you favor participant empowerment in mediation? The contrast would be I just take them as I get them. I don't do anything to assist them to be better, more capable. But do you, and if so, how much empowerment? Because I've never been able to figure out a basis for withholding support and assistance? If you're withholding to one, are you favoring the other, et cetera? So for me, I have a complete commitment to assisting each participant to be as capable as they possibly can every moment. I'm not every moment in real time, but as part of the mediation. All right. So this is an issue. Do we as mediators participate in empowerment? If so, how much? If complete, I think we need to integrate AI as we move forward. And in fact, I'm going to suggest to you from a business perspective, okay, from a mediation industry perspective, that the smartest thing we could do right now is to fully embrace participant empowerment and optimized problem solving. I actually think intrinsically, most of us have already done this. It's why we mediate. We want to help people. We want to assist them to reach the most capable possible agreements. And so my suggestion is we make what's been implicit explicit as part of differentiating mediation in the dispute resolution terrain, in the landscape. We are the only process, intrinsically or explicitly, that is really there to assist people to be at their best and to reach most capable agreements. Now, if we want to more purposefully embrace AI as a furtherance of empowerment and optimized problem solving, I have a question. How would we best do that? So we've come a long way. This is what things looked like when I started. And in fact, it was pink phone message slips that drove me to the digital world. I was trying to manage the Academy of Family Mediators. I was being driven nuts by endless phone tag and really unsuccessful phone calls with individual people when they could be available. And as I'll show, it was 1988 where I met John Healy in Montreal at the NCPCR conference, where he showed me this new thing called email and attachments and bulletin boards. And this was 8 years before the commercial internet. This was back in the day of proprietary networks. But some of you will remember carbon paper. Phones were to places, not people. We would have typewriters, but we were lucky if we could correct a couple characters. Um, Whiteout was a big deal for me as I got started in mediation. We'll be talking a little bit about the pace of change. I think the whole thing got started in the 1840s with Remington inventing the typewriter. And I want to note it was 110 years later that they finally invented whiteout. Okay, and that's our first data points in terms of the pace of change. But everything was physical. We're mailing things to people. We had mimeograph, etc. How far we have come. My first three cases were on a typewriter. And every time folks wanted to add a paragraph or change something, I would cringe and feel like a coronary was coming on. But either retype the page or use whiteout. I can remember having people initial, whiteout corrections along the way. The first big deal technologically for me was the dedicated word processor. 1983, I got my Polara dedicated word processor. And suddenly, not only could I endlessly edit and store, but I could come up with versions, revisions, model agreements, etc. It was a total game changer. Of course, at that time, I was paying a secretary and paying for her office, etc., to run the whole thing, but we'll get to that later. So this was the very physical, dictating, give the tape to a secretary, typing up, bring it back to you, mark it up. She'd make the corrections, give it back to me, finalize it, send it through the mail to be received 3 to 4 days later. Everything was physical. And I would suggest, I think the mediation office, for me at least, was kind of half artist studio, half behavioral laboratory, where there was not a thing in that office that was not purposefully placed there for some psychologic, strategic reason. Okay. So here's just kind of the norm, the physical practice norms. You can review this. It probably looks very familiar, but think of contrasting this with people just accessing mediation on their laptop or phone from their home or workplace or wherever's a park if they want. Okay. So this physical model, while having lots of humanity with it, was also kind of inefficient and expensive and really limited the number of people that could come and take advantage of our services. But for me, the epitome of the physicality was the yurt I built on my property outside of Eugene, where I would meet with folks. And the very first couple that came in, the fellow who was kind of a jerk, he kind of looked around and said, I get it. And I said, you get what? And he said, people couldn't possibly fight up here. And I said, you got it. All right. So there is a place for the physical environment and the state of being that it creates. And I think you'll see I'm still able to take advantage of that. So here's John. And John, over a number of years, just said, let me show you email. Then one day it was, hey, it's not just fonts on a green monitor anymore. You can get an amber monitor. And then it was colored monitors and colored fonts. And then one day it was, hey, let me show you this picture. And then another day it was, would you listen to this audio? And another day it was, can you believe this video? We got video happening now, you know. And my response was always the same, which is this changes everything. And it did as we got all the modalities online. Now, John and I used to also talk about the holy grail. Would the online environment ever get so good that people would actually say, we can just do it online. We don't need to physically go there. And, that has turned out to be Zoom. That has turned out to be Zoom as a meeting surrogate. And we would talk about the pace of change, which is ever quickening. So very quickly, the first major technologic development was word processing, moved over to PCs and Macs, and we're not going to have any religious discussions about that in the moment. But the ability for endless word processing, unlimited storage, ever improving software. You all will remember WordPerfect, I'm sure. Many of you supplanted by Word over time. You probably remember stuffing a dozen disks just to update your version. Um, Also, ever increasing mobility. And this is critical in terms of us being able to take our work wherever we want and also reach people. One of the most mind-blowing things, I'll get there in a moment. Next major event is the World Wide Web, the graphical, rich media internet. Remarkably, browsers are an underappreciated software. They hold all of our modalities of communication: text, image, audio, video, delivered either in real time or asynchronous. And this is our palette as mediation artists. Or I sometimes say, this is the choreography of communications that we utilize now are these 8 options: text, image, audio, video, either real time or asynchronous. And I want to emphasize the asynchronous. When we're in real time in mediation, we get people's first response, usually a prepared, rehearsed response. When we give them homework, questions to think about, that's the key to asynchrony is we can have people percolate on things, think about things, give them new questions to think about, and do it on their own asynchronous time. We don't even need to charge them for it. And we're going to get their best thinking, not their first response. Okay. So I think asynchrony is critical to assisting people to go into new brain cells and have some new thinking. The phone, oh my God, what a change. I don't even know why we call it a phone anymore. We actually now have a computer in everybody's pocket or purse. And over time, the bandwidth was expanded. And this converted our communications from being place-based to personalized, person-based. And over time, we developed enough bandwidth on the mobile devices that people now have an expectation they can access anything on the web on their phone. This has been a big challenge. The challenge was initially called responsive design. How do you design your web platform so that it works whether somebody's on a big computer or whether they're on their phone. But we've met that challenge. I do want to mention, though, that at mediate.com, it used to be 100% of the traffic was on computers. 70% of our traffic is now on a phone, a mobile device. And we have to have that expectation with regard to online mediation as well. People are remarkably going to be doing a lot of it just on their phone with that limited real estate. One big change that's happening right now is that we're shifting from just needing to type stuff to people being able to access more and more of the internet, including online mediation, just with audio, talking to the phone. And then we'll have the AI just go ahead and write it up for them and ask for approval. So the whole interface is changing. The cloud, a really big deal. Now we don't have to worry about updates of software. It just kind of happens. It also stores our data for us, which takes care of the backup issue. So here's kind of a list of just a bunch of things that changed over about 30 years. And the main point I want to make here is that the front end and the back end of mediation were substantially digitized before COVID. People had websites, they were contacted, they scheduled, they got payment, etc. But then they would physically meet, and then after that, they would process the content digitally, correspondence, drafts, track changes, DocuSign, satisfaction surveys. The front end and the back end were substantially digitized prior to COVID. And that's what allowed us, I think, to survive and thrive with COVID. All right. So, big deal. The Holy Grail arrived with Zoom. Oh my God, what a miracle that we got it. And guess who's back mediating in the yurt? Because when you're mediating on Zoom, you can have any background you want. And I still tell the yurt story, and it works, even though we're doing it digitally. And I say, the first people came here, they said they couldn't possibly fight here. And I say, hopefully they'll rub off on you all in this meeting as well. All right. And then finally, we've got AI. And AI is bigger than any previous development. And the reason is all the previous developments really were digital plumbing that just made the online environment better, 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 more facile, more effective, more real. Okay? AI now deals with what's going through all those pipes. Okay? It can deal with any of the substantive issues that we're dealing with, and this is new. So there's a wonderful resource I encourage you to check out at odr.com/AI. This is managed by Colin Rule, now the CEO of odr.com and mediate.com, and Claire Fowler. And it's about 30 pages where they review a number of ethical issues. They give platform reviews, including platforms to be avoided for reasons of security and privacy. And they also give a number of sample prompts for working with AI. And I told them I was going to be mentioning that today. And so I think I motivated them to do a further update of this resource as well. Now, next piece is, we all mediate differently. We mediate in different contexts, different cultures, etc. And I'm a great believer in 31 flavors of mediation. I think the more we're out there and that people can choose the one or the people that seem most attractive and right for them, fantastic. What I do historically was family, workplace, family business, increasingly actually tech companies. But a commonality to them is that there would be a historic relationship, there would be a drama, a falling out, but there would also be issues about future relationship. And this is in addition to the substantive issues themselves, right? I also typically am mediating with the real parties in interest. They may well have attorneys and other advisors, but they're going to be outside because why do you need to drag them in and pay them an hourly rate when, hopefully you're going to figure this out and be able to work together again, et cetera. So for me, what I call maximizing mediation or optimizing mediation, I want to assist people to be at their individual best. Do they come to us that way? I think the answer is typically not. More often, they come to us if they're rehearsed worst, is what I find. So, how can I assist them as an individual to be as effective and comfortable and competent as possible? Second thing, can I assist these folks to work together? And to what extent have they? What extent might they have any agreement? How did you meet? What have you been successful with? All right, maybe we'll apply some of that success going forward as well. And ultimately, I also want them to get as much substantive satisfaction as possible. Right. And my main point here is AI helps me with all of these aspects, not just the substantive issues, but if people have a difficult history, I can describe it for AI. What are your thoughts about how I might bend this around the curve and get us in a more constructive relation? So you can ask AI anything and it will respond. The other thing is, I think we all have different strategies for working with people. I just have three main strategies. First is interest-based problem solving, which it's all elicitive questions. We become one with them. We develop rapport. We gather the information. We make sure we understand all their motivations. We harvest any easy agreements. We develop a best problem-solving agenda, anything else that you all can. All right, good. Then there's a point where it shifts, where the discussion becomes a bit more mediator centric, if you will. The fancy name would be hypothesis generation and testing. We as mediator, at some point when they run out of gas, we have some hunches of things that might possibly work. So we wonder, we're curious, might it be perhaps something to some extent along the lines of, and based on their responses, we ever refine our hunches until ultimately we hope to guess, the pot of gold, the ultimate settlement. Now, as they're making their decisions, I'll then bring in the BATNA, the WATNA, the MALATNA, comparing what would be available in mediation with what it would be if they don't agree. Now, one thing I've learned is people will never agree for no reason. And so I will do a piece where I identify what I call the string of pearls, the genuine progress that's available. We know it's going to be imperfect, but let's compare it to your option, which is lack of resolution, delay, cost, stress, blah, 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 even though imperfect. Might it be enough? Any way we can improve it. So it would be enough. So we're going to compare to the outside alternatives, sometimes called heat, if you will, all right? Doubt and dissonance. So I've got a strategic model. You have strategic models. AI should support your way of doing. People are still people. They operate psychologically mostly the same. So what you've developed, what you do that works for you, I think you perpetuate, and you have AI help you do that. So very quickly, way back in 1990, before any networks, I developed a computer program called Agree, which was just a framing of the discussions that would most likely help you lead to agreement. It was a structuring of mediation. I used it mostly for training purposes because functionally it really needed a network to work between the parties. But this is way back when. And this is the exact same thing I'm working on right now. My current assignment is to create the world's best robotic mediator for workplace family disputes, believing that we can get people into the mediation funnel and gather their data, assist them to make as much progress as they can. And the critical thing, as we will find out, in having the AI and the online environment work is the ongoing availability of human assistance. Okay. And in fact, I'll be describing the availability of a mediation information specialist as people are just grappling with whether mediation is right for them. And I'm going to suggest, even as we gather the data, once they've made a mediator selection, the ongoing availability of the human mediator, whether it's real-time chat, whether it's a scheduled phone call, whether it's back to you the next day, it is It is paradoxically the ongoing availability of human contact that makes the online systems work. And it's a really fascinating thing. I'll show you how ChatGPT gave me that awareness. So anyhow, from my perspective, mediation and AI are a marriage made in heaven. I now have unbelievable firepower in terms of assisting people to be more capable, work together, etc. And I believe AI uniquely benefits mediation in allowing us to optimize participant empowerment and problem solving optimization. This image itself was created by DALL-E, which is a graphics creation program. The first thing I said, can you make me a graphic of this? This was one of the first three that they gave to me for free. Okay. I don't think I could probably protect that though, as intellectual property. All right. So I think we're already based on empowerment and optimization. I think that's what mediation is all about. We just haven't championed that enough as a differentiation from the rest of our industry. So nothing we talk about with AI and mediation is going to change the voluntary nature. People have total control over results. It's confidential, secure, won't be held against them, etc. Okay. They've still got all those core, remarkably empowering qualities in the mediation context. All right, so quickly, why is AI different? Okay, because it's beyond digital plumbing. Now it's also about what's going through the pipes. You can ask AI anything, and it's become ever better at having a conversation with you. You're making a mistake if you think you just ask it a question and you take a single answer. In fact, it'll start stimulating a conversation with you. And I encourage you to run with that, certainly as you're learning. It's your new affordable. I don't think I've paid more than 20 bucks a month to anybody. It's your affordable, hardworking, never complaining, well-informed consultant. For example, ChatGPT, in going from like 3.0 to 4.0 to now 5.2, it's taken itself from like a high school level to a PhD level and is very engaging with you in conversation. I'm really intrigued by AI as additional voices in the conversation. You know, if we're exclusively relying on the mediator to come up with new ideas or possible solutions, you know, that it may be nice to have the ability to have ideas come from other sources as well. And AI is an unbelievably great idea generator. I think what we do is we use it for asynchronous homework. The one thing I found participants do is in their queries, in their prompting of AI, they're always just thinking of themselves. They're not thinking of the other party as well. So the homework I'll give them is I'll convert it, as Jeff mentioned, all to what are your positive motives. Everybody's trying to get their life better, you know. So what's motivating that? And then I'm going to combine it with the positive motivations of the other and say, with these people and all of these motivations, what are your initial ideas about brainstorming possibilities of how we might best work together to resolve things as capably as possible moving forward. So you can use the AI as new voices and the different platforms as respective voices if you want. And again, this asynchronous AI homework is just wonderful. Um, a blessing, a miracle is that as we interface with AI, we do it with what's called, it's actually natural language processing. Okay. So as you'll see, and I'm going to show you some AI platforms really quickly, you just use your common language to tell it what you want. And if you don't get it, you say, hey, can you adjust this? Can you add that? Okay. It's natural language. I don't need to work with programmers anymore. I can create programs just talking to the systems. Right? Final little thing here is you don't have to worry about complexity or length or computer power. The computer now will give you your answers typically in 15 to 20 seconds. And even if you're developing something substantial like a 20-minute audio podcast, that's about 3 or 4 minutes to get that done. The one warning I give you is be wary about disclosing personal identifying information. I do encourage you to try at least 2 or 3 of the large language models, GPT, Gemini, Claude are three leading ones. I think as a mediator, you need to be able to meet parties where they are relative to AI. You actually need in your initial conversation with them, be it individual caucus discussion or be it joint. Any thoughts, folks? Have you done research with AI? Where are you with regard to AI? You need to be able to meet them where they are and have an intelligent discussion about how we might possibly use this to benefit our discussions. Another miracle. Here I do get religious. I love, mediation, the delivery system is all questions. That's what we do. We ask between 50 and 500 questions to resolve. That's what we do. Well, that's also how you access information on all of the AI systems. And so I'm going to suggest to you that your ability to sensitively, precisely articulate the motivations, needs, hopes, goals, desires of the folks, and really to come up with wonderful phraseology that you can share with folks. Perhaps this might be a starting point. Go ahead and complement it as you might want. Um, this is allowing them to do their own research, but the articulation of the prompts is critical. John Landy did a substantial presentation on this, and he's got some great resources at mediate.com in terms of prompts, as well as that location, odr.com/AI. So AI is a great idea generator. Suggestion: never ask for single answers in mediation. Always be asking in the plural. What are the options? What are the possibilities? What are exchanges that might be made? Always ask in the plural. We're all concerned appropriately about hallucinations. Okay. We're getting better, better, better at tracking those down and getting rid of them by what they call source tracking, but they do still exist. And critical issues, anything that goes out of your office, you're responsible for. AI may do an amazing job and take you to the 2 yard line with something, but you're responsible. You need to review it. Okay. You can have AI tools help you, but you're responsible. Finally, I'm suggesting that there's three components now in online mediation: automation, AI, and what I'll call the human touch. And I'm going to introduce the Turing test in a short moment. Now, here is just a resource that you might consider. I asked ChatGPT what would be a good provision for people to add to their agreement to mediate relative to AI utilization. And here, the primary differentiation is between administrative ministerial functions and substantive discussions. Okay? My belief is, first of all, you can never be too transparent, but do you really need to tell everybody how you're running your website and how you're responding to their, I don't think the administrative ministerial stuff is the problem. The issue is anytime we're dealing with substantive issue consideration, I do think transparency is required. And you're going to go ahead and set this off at your first meetings, letting them know what you've done out there with AI, hearing from them. And okay, folks, let's stay in touch. And what I will let you know is that anytime what you're hearing from me is because I was doing some research on AI, I'm going to let you know about that. All right. So the differentiation between administrative ministerial functions like marketing your practice or Grammarly, to correct, I don't think we need to worry about being fully transparent with that. But anytime we're using AI to help on the substantive issues, I think we demonstrate our candor and delivering on what we said we would do by being clear about that. So here's provision to consider adding into your agreement to mediate. All right. Now let's go quickly how I got into the AI stuff. First thing I did was I was writing obituaries. And there's my prompting in the italics there. And I was blown away. For some reason, I know a lot of people that are older in the field. I can't figure out why that is. But people would pass, and I would really feel I wanted to do a great job on an obituary for this person. And what I found is coming up with a prompting like this would give me, sometimes they'd say, here it is, or sometimes they'd say, take a look at these two obituaries. They were so much better than I could have ever done. And the total time required from me was 10 minutes rather than an hour and a half. All I would go in there and is maybe do an adjustment or two, add a couple links. And these are sample obituaries that I did. I did one for Tom Fee. Colin, my boss, calls me the next day. How the hell did you develop that obituary? I did one for Jeff Krivis. Amy, his wife, called me up the next day and said, how did you do that? And the reality is, I had AI put me on the 2 yard line, and I just polished a teeny bit, and away we went. Um, because I do recognize a lot of folks from a long time ago. Please, please, please think about your digital legacy. I encourage you to have Mediate republish your stuff. It will also get it into the AI systems that are out there. But I promise you, your digital legacy will survive you and probably longer than any other aspect. So take a look at our memorial section. Think about how you want to be remembered. Let's make sure we got your best stuff there. Um, AI podcasts have been just a revelation for us. We've got 15,000 articles, news items, audios, videos, a lot of them, 10, 20, 30 years old now. And what I have found is a fantastic ability to take a lot of our biggest, most complex pieces and develop 10 to 25-minute AI podcasts. And the program I use, as I'll show you in a minute, is Notebook LM. Fantastic AI platform. I so much wish I would have had this during law school. The whole thing about Notebook LM is you can load any sources in there, and you'll see there's a variety of outputs you can do, text, audio, or even video now. And the cool thing is Notebook LM, its commitment is to teaching you all the content across the board, even handed. It's not like a human podcast where you're going to go down tangents, but won't really get the whole. So, as a learning device, example, the ultimate agreement, AAA bought mediate.com and ODR.com. The purchase agreement was 79 pages. I couldn't understand half of it, but I had Notebook LM tell me what were the most relevant pieces, and I understood it in a fraction of the time. Okay. Also at mediate.com, we now have a chatbot to help people find their mediator. You can see the lime green box there. You can also see John Landy's article about the art of AI prompting in dispute resolution. So the chatbot now is another accessing point for people getting their mediators. We've got tons of AI content. The link up here will work for you. We're publishing 2 and 3 articles a week at this point. It's really mind-boggling. Amazing authors, John Landy, Bob Bergman, I mentioned. Bridget McCormick is the CEO of AAA. She's been amazing with regard to AI. I'll show you some more stuff on that. We've got Claire Fowler, we've got Colin Rule. These are among the real leaders in AI. We've now got 9 or 10 AI courses at mediateuniversity.com. There's a phenomenal course for people that do divorce mediation that is there, just amazing, with like 19 presenters. And there's a thing we just completed, these monthly consultation groups. For 2025, we had 7 thematic meetings. You can see what they are in bold there. They're all recorded. They're all available. I encourage you to consider just watching those on video. It'll get you up to speed. Claire Fowler took the lead on this. And for each of these topics, she would explore 3 or 4 different platforms, and she would typically come up with a recommended platform, and she would demonstrate how you get going. on it. So if any of this stuff is of interest to you, please consider you can subscribe to Dive into AI. We're starting another consultation group in February for 2026. My understanding is it's going to be more open discussion, not quite as planful as this one. I believe it's going to be free as well. So keep an eye open for that. Here's a Chat GPT interface. Um, Ask it anything, literally. Okay. The plus thing would be if you wanted to upload text or an image or a file for these are the main tools: image, searching the web, either writing or developing code or doing deep research. Notice on the right side there is a microphone. And John Healy, my partner, he never learned to really type. He was a hunt and pecker his entire life. He now completely interfaces with ChatGPT and AI just by talking to the system, as does my wife, which is pretty amazing. I still type. Uh, how fast ChatGPT is growing, 1 million in 5 days, 100 million in 2 months. There's now over 800 million users of ChatGPT, and they're expecting 1 billion users by the end of 2026. And it's not the only platform, but I'm just giving you a sense. Compare it to the uptake on Facebook, for example. It's remarkable. This is the Notebook LM was the thing that it's a Google product. It's fantastic. I'll show you a bit more. These are the things it can help you with according to ChatGPT. So here I'm modeling my ability to ask one AI platform how another AI platform can help me. This is to show you how you can have multiple sources that you review. Um, you can have any number of articles, content. Notice here I've got content, but I've also got a couple of videos. Remarkably, Notebook LM can review YouTube videos. It doesn't watch the video, it takes advantage of the transcript and uses the transcript from the video. Here are some of my audio options. Here's some of my text options: a study guide, a briefing document, an FAQ, a timeline. It will tend to give you the options that are relevant for your content. And if you want to see a sample of a variety of these, you could click this link. There's new 2025 family mediation standards. So I developed a summary, a briefing document, an audio, and a video. The audios are called deep dive. The videos are called explainer videos. This box here is my natural language processing interface where I just tell it what I want it to do. I customize it. I tell it what I want it to do. We try it out. I'm asking ChatGPT to help me with my prompting for Notebook LM. It says, no problem, pleased to help. There's some other audio AI outputs. JellyPod is fascinating because you can actually clone your voice and have your voice, for example, be on the podcast. There's also a really cool thing where it will give you a written transcript and you can edit the audio by editing the transcript. Gen FM, just as an example, this is from 11 Labs. They now offer audio output in 32 different languages. They also have AI that will take out ums and ahs, things like that. Quickly, if you wanted an avatar to help you, if you wanted a secretary without having to pay a secretary, Ojai is worth considering. You can ask it to do anything. You can ask it to send a text message, an email message, to develop a draft agreement to mediate, to add to your to list, to Claire discovered it. Now you got to remember, you as mediator need to be fully responsible for everything that goes out with your name on it. But you actually could just have this thing do it automatically for you. It's rather remarkable. Claire demonstrated how she manages her family with this, sending reminders to her 3 kids and her husband and the like. She says it's just been phenomenal for that. But if you just want to try an AI assistant, the other one I want to introduce is Pickaxe. Pickaxe allows you to very easily create smart forms All right. And this is a big deal when we're doing online mediation. For example, our intake, we need excellent forms. The biggest mistake you can make is asking for the same information twice. People find that an insult these days. All right. So you can do smart forms and you can have audio entry. I've been mentioning that. So you can check out Pickaxe. Also, if you want a chatbot, your own private chatbot for your website, very easy to create. Um, this is our natural language. Just tell the chatbot what we want it to do. You push a button, you have a chatbot in 10 minutes. It's crazy. All right. So Ojai and Pickaxe would be among the first administrative ministerial pieces. All right. Very quickly, should you trust either of these mediators? Clearly, the answer is no. On the first one, I had that picture up for 25 years on my website, so I was clearly misrepresenting the mediator they were getting. And the one on the right, AAA said if you want an AI image, you can. You send them a dozen images, it sends you 100 back to look at. And this is the one that added 10% Matthew McConaughey, and I went with that one. So, but I understand I can't protect that image. So anyhow, just a little giggle there. Here's the overview, the three components of what we got going forward. Now, here's the Turing test. The Turing test is if sufficient human service is accomplished, and a user can't tell whether it's a computer or a human, and they're satisfied, is that okay? Is that enough? And I think we find that it is. If you go to change a plane ticket or a hotel reservation, etc. I got a little bit more specific and I asked ChatGPT, would we ever have systems where you just had a robotic mediator, that would be sufficient and that people would be happy and satisfied, right? This is an example of what ChatGPT will do. It says, well, let me give you what we see in the future. Here's what we see in the short term. Okay, you can read this on your, right? Here's what we see in the midterm. Here's what we see in the long term. Okay, it reassures us there'll always be a place for human media, right? And then it gives a final thought, and then it says, hey, would you like me to develop a framework for that whole system? Sure, why not? It gives me now a complete framework. I sent this to Colin. He was blown away in terms of what would be the various components of a most capable online mediation system, including safeguards for fairness and accountability, etc. I could never have developed something like this on my own. Talks about simulating the human touch, cases for early adoption. And I want to say there are already systems dealing with traffic tickets and property tax disputes that are being successful in resolving 50 to 70%. So the narrower the issues, the easier, the robotic performance. But ultimately, it says, there's always going to be a place for the human. And then it says, would you like to see a mock diagram? And this is where I had a light bulb go off. It gave me the diagram other than the blue arrow piece. And as it explained in text, it is the access to the human support that makes the online environment work. And this has been a huge issue for us making sales of online platforms. We're talking to judges, sometimes a presiding judge or a court administrator. And so what I've come to recognize is that the steady availability of a mediation information specialist or case developer as a visitor to your website is contemplating being engaged and entering your intake little process. The ever-present availability of the human support, be it by live chat or a scheduled phone call or whatever way. And then once the mediator would be assigned, the ongoing availability, a click away of the human mediator support. It may not be immediate, it may need to be scheduled, but paradoxically, it is the ever-present availability of human support that makes online mediation systems work. What we're doing is we're going to take people as far forward as they can with human access, and ultimately we'll be giving mediators cases on silver platters with as much developed data as possible. And here's my next business thing. I think the future of mediation is going to be about price certain mediation. The hourly charging for the online mediation with such nimble meetings here, meetings there, caucus join, etc. It doesn't work with the internet. The internet is about price certainty. Now, what I think it is, you look at that work and you say, I think I could get this done in 10 total hours. So for a total of up to 10 hours, I'm going to give you a price certain of X. Okay. And I even had a discussion yesterday that you might even say, if we're not successful, I'll go ahead and give you a 30% refund. And I'm just saying, talking internet commerce business language now. Mediators need to think about this. All right, very quickly, AAA bought us. AAA has developed an AI arbitrator for construction disputes, and they really have humanized it. Hats off to Bridges McCormick and the AAA staff. This is how it works. This is arbitration. My belief is that this structure could work for big bucks, litigated, distributive cases. This model, you could just change the arbitration to a mediation and have the discussions be confidential, or do a meet arb within this context as well. So hats off. This was just announced about a month ago. It's exclusively for construction cases, and it's because AAA has a data set of over 30,000 historic cases that they refer to. But there's nothing that's automated. That information from AI is brought into a human-run arbitration process. AAA just came up with some wonderful standards for AI and ADR. They just came out. They're the best I've seen. You see a PDF link to the standards. I also posted them here. Okay. They're complex. Read them. They're important. You should become familiar with the Otter case. I think this article is by Bob Bergman. And this was a class action privacy dispute where people were recording Zoom meetings with Otter. And in fact, I noticed that somebody was recording this meeting initially with Otter as well. And if we were a mediation, we would make certain that if there was any such recording, that it was by agreement and with transparency. Bob's recommendations. All right. Finally, I've now been meeting with John Healy again, the guy who I founded Mediate.com with, and we meet on Zoom. And we take advantage of Zoom's AI companion. And the AI companion did a meeting summary for us. It did a complete transcript, and all of these next step action items actually go right to the transcript where it was agreed upon. Here's a summary of the meeting. It's about 5 times as long as this, but you can see how clean it is. And it was blow away. The AI companion in Zoom is blow away for the mediator. You don't have to take notes. You really don't. You can be fully present there. So I asked ChatGPT, if we were to use the AI companion in Zoom, what kind of understanding would we want with the parties? And you'll see the response here. And I added one piece, which is that all data would be deleted fully within 72 hours. That piece came from me. But here's an example of the kind of provision that you would consider adding to your agreement to mediate if you, in fact, wanted to take advantage of the AI companion in your Zoom platform. One way or another, play with it to really understand. It's very powerful. I think we can sell optimized solutions. That's what I'm emphasizing. My project right now, I'm trying to train a robotic mediator. I mentioned that. I'm giving you just a couple of pages of my instructions. I'm telling it, it's got to go by all the traditional standards of practice. I'm going ahead and so there's 18 pages of these instructions to the robotic mediator. That's exactly where I am right now. And I'm starting to do some testing on it. So, final questions. Is the pursuit of optimized results a proper and valuable aspirational goal for the field of mediation? Okay? I promise you, nobody else has that as a goal? Is the increasing empowerment of participants a proper and valuable aspirational goal for the field? I think these things are. I think that this helps us differentiate mediation from all other processes. Is resistance to AI futile? The answer is yes, it is. It's already wanting to write your emails. It's already giving you AI results even when you go to do a Google search. It is the future. That doesn't mean you need to subscribe to all the aspects, but keep an open mind. It's very powerful. And in fact, mediators who embrace AI and take proper advantage of it will be the ones that survive. Okay. Final note about determinism, crazy concept, which is that anytime you go to do an AI prompt and search, it's starting from scratch and giving you a result. So if I do the exact same prompt 5 minutes apart to ChatGPT, I will get a somewhat different response. And if I do it the next day, I'll get a different response as well. It's just a weird concept, but it will sometimes explain variance and dissonance. So, final question I had is our field capably organized to take full advantage of optimization, empowerment, and AI? And I will say off the bat, I wish we had a national mediation association. We don't. Okay. I love the ABADR. Susan Guthrie's done an unbelievable job bringing us, but mediation deserves an organization which has the best interest of this empowering, optimizing process at heart. And we have it at the state level, but we don't have it at the national level. I think it's something we should think about. I asked it, could we organize the field? This is ChatGPT's response. It asked me if, would you like a charter, an organizational charter? Okay, it's asking me for the things I might want. Would you want an organizational charter for such an organization? Sure, show it to me. All right. And my final point here is I think we have an unprecedented opportunity with AI to really highlight what have been the most empowering aspects of our field always: the voluntariness, the collaboration, the safety, total decision-making control. For us to ignore AI and the ability of participants to elevate their information base, their understanding, their possibilities would be a huge mistake for the field. And so my goal is actually to ask the question, how can we best as a field integrate the best of AI? And of course, every practitioner will make their own choices, but how can we do our best to consider these possibilities? And I think that's it.
Jim, that's fabulous. What a great way for us to start the year with this kind of stimulating, educational, provocative presentation. Thank you so much. I know that I will be contributing to Food for Lane County in your honor. That's www.foodforlanecounty.org, foodforlanecounty.org. Jim Melamed, thank you very much. This was a tremendous presentation. And with that, we are complete.